The movie opens in Istanbul with a frantic mission to recover a stolen hard drive containing the identities of undercover NATO agents. Agent Ronson is shot and down, and fellow agent James Bond is in hot pursuit of the mercenary who has taken the drive. Bond's partner Eve is giving him directions from a distance. The chase is relentless, moving from a vehicle pursuit through the crowded streets and markets of Istanbul to the rooftops of the Grand Bazaar and finally onto a moving train. Despite Bond's efforts, Eve is ordered by M, the head of MI6, to take the bloody shot at the mercenary before he escapes into a tunnel, even though the shot is not clean and risks hitting Bond. Eve fires, but the shot hits Bond, who plummets from the train into a river below. The mercenary gets away, the hard drive is lost, and Bond is presumed dead. The opening credits sequence follows, after which M is called before Gareth Mallory, the new chairman of the Intelligence and Security Committee, who informs her that the Prime Minister is concerned about the lost list. Mallory is there to oversee M's voluntary retirement in 2 months, implying she is being fired due to the catastrophic security breach. M, defiant, refuses to leave until the job is done. Suddenly an alert comes in. Someone is attempting to decrypt the stolen hard drive. The signal is traced to MI6 headquarters in London, and moments later a massive explosion tears through the MI6 building. The attack is later revealed to be an unprecedented cyber-terrorist assault. In a remote location, a very much alive though clearly shaken Bond is enjoying his death. He sees a news report about the MI6 attack and returns to London, reporting for duty to a visibly shocked M. The reunion is tense as M admits she made a judgment call in ordering the shot, prioritizing the certainty of losing all the other agents over the possibility of losing him. M orders Bond to undergo debriefing and fitness tests before being cleared for active service. The new temporary MI6 headquarters is deep underground in Churchill's bunker. Bond meets with M and Mallory. Mallory, having reviewed Bond's subpar test results, questions his fitness, noting that it's a young man's game. M, however, maintains that she chooses her operatives and puts Bond back on active duty despite his physical and mental state. Analysis of the shrapnel from the MI6 bombing reveals it was from a depleted uranium shell, a rare military-grade weapon. The same type of ammunition was used by the mercenary Patrice, who stole the hard drive. MI6 determines Patrice is heading to Shanghai for a job. Bond is tasked with finding him, discovering who he works for, recovering the list, and terminating him. Before he leaves, Bond is introduced to his new quartermaster, a young man who introduces himself as Q. The new Q issues Bond a coded Walther PPK/S handgun and a standard radio transmitter, mocking the agency's reliance on exploding pens in the past. In Shanghai, Bond tracks Patrice to a high-rise building where the mercenary is preparing to assassinate a target. The fight is brief and brutal. Bond kills Patrice, but not before the mercenary can reveal who he is working for. However, before Bond can question him, Patrice falls to his death. Bond is left with a unique gaming chip that Patrice was carrying. Back in London, the villain, who has already decrypted the hard drive, posts the first 5 names of the compromised agents on the web, all of whom are immediately killed. This confirms the attack is a sadistic game orchestrated by someone who knows MI6 intimately. Following the trail of the gaming chip, Bond travels to Macau. He meets Severine, a beautiful, mysterious woman with a Macau sex trade tattoo, who is now the mistress of the man Bond is hunting. Severine, terrified of her employer, reveals that she helped Patrice in Shanghai and offers to take Bond to the man in exchange for her freedom and protection. She tells Bond to meet her on her yacht, the Chimera, in 1 hour. Severine is being controlled by her bodyguards, but Bond easily dispatches them and makes it to the yacht. On board, Severine shows Bond an island near Macau, a deserted, contaminated place, the lair of her employer. The two grow close, but their journey ends when they are captured by Severine's employer and his men. The mysterious villain steps out, revealing himself to be Raul Silva, a former MI6 agent M abandoned and betrayed during her time running things in Hong Kong. Silva is out for revenge against M. Silva ties Severine and Bond up, subjecting them to a twisted game of truth or dare. Silva forces Bond to watch as he puts a glass of neat scotch on Severine's head and challenges Bond to shoot it. Bond misses the glass, and Silva, angry at Bond's failure, kills Severine with a single shot. The island explodes in chaos as a helicopter assault is launched by MI6. Silva is captured and brought back to the new MI6 headquarters. Bond is reunited with Eve, who has followed him to Macau. In London, Silva is locked in a glass cage. Q, initially overconfident, tries to access Silva's laptop but unwittingly frees the villain. Silva escapes into the London Underground, triggering a pre-planned attack on M, who is scheduled to attend a public inquiry regarding the MI6 attack. Bond pursues Silva through the tunnels, and the chase leads to the courtroom where M is testifying. Silva's henchmen launch a gun attack on the inquiry, creating a diversion. Silva finds M, but Bond manages to intervene and they escape in a waiting vehicle. Bond realizes Silva's plan is to kill M, and the only way to protect her is to take her to a place no one else knows, Skyfall, his childhood home in the Scottish Highlands. M agrees. At Skyfall, Bond meets his loyal gamekeeper Kincaid, who is prepared to help defend the estate. Bond rigs the old manor house with explosives and booby traps. They are completely cut off and prepared for a siege. Bond uses M's radio transmitter, his only gadget, from Q to send out a fake distress signal, luring Silva and his men to the remote location. Silva and his forces arrive by helicopter, commencing a full-scale assault. Bond, M, and Kincaid defend the house against the attackers. The first assault is repelled with Bond's cunning and Kincaid's shotgun. When Silva calls for a second wave, Bond triggers a gas explosion that destroys the main manor house, forcing Silva to retreat to the grounds. Bond, M and Kincaid escape through a secret tunnel. Silva's final move is to use his remaining men to flank Bond and get to M. Bond leads Silva away from M and Kincaid, knowing the old house is vulnerable. Bond and Kincaid lead M to a small chapel. Silva pursues them, finding M in the chapel and preparing to kill her. Bond arrives and throws a knife, hitting Silva. As Silva is distracted, Bond and Silva fight, leading to Silva's death. Bond rushes to M, but she has been mortally wounded in the previous fighting. M dies in Bond's arms, having finally finished the job. Following M's funeral, Mallory is now taking over as the new M. Eve, revealing that she is no longer a field agent, decides to take a desk job and introduces herself to Bond as Eve Moneypenny. Bond goes to the new M's office to take up his new assignment, ready to serve under his new chief as the cycle of MI6 continues. To dismantle Bond's loyalty to M, Silva reveals Bond's recent psychological and physical evaluation results, all of which M had dismissed or hidden, showing that Bond was deemed unfit for duty due to addiction and trauma. Silva claims M sent Bond to die just as she sent him. He then subjects Bond to a twisted game. Severine is forced to stand with a shot glass of Macallan whiskey on her head, and Bond is challenged to shoot the glass. Bond misses, and a disappointed Silva summarily executes Severine with a single shot to the head. At that moment, a helicopter assault team, tipped off by Bond's earlier activation of his radio transmitter, arrives. Silva is captured and brought back to the new underground MI6 headquarters. M confronts her former agent, who proudly displays his disfigured face and blames her for the betrayal and subsequent suffering. M remains cold and professional, telling him his name is on the memorial wall and regret is unprofessional. Meanwhile, Q attempts to decrypt Silva's laptop, only to discover a vast conspiracy years in the making. Silva had allowed himself to be captured as part of his elaborate plan. The fail-safe protocols on his computer, which Q invented, are the very keys to unlocking a map of the London Underground. Q realizes Silva's true intent was not to escape but to breach MI6's secure system from the inside and lead his forces to M. Silva uses his knowledge to escape through a complex sequence of door service tunnels and abandon tube lines. Bond, in pursuit, learns from Q that Silva is heading to the parliamentary hearing where M is testifying. As M eloquently defends the necessity of human intelligence and secret agents in a world where enemies are individuals who exist in the shadows, Silva, disguised as a police officer, leads a brutal gun attack on the hearing room. Bond arrives just in time, fighting off Silva's men. Silva himself appears, tossing a small explosive device at M before fleeing. Bond grabs M and they escape in a waiting vehicle. Deciding to go on the offensive and isolate Silva, Bond chooses a location known only to him, Skyfall, his family's dilapidated ancestral estate in the Scottish Highlands. He instructs Q to lay a false trail that only Silva would be able to follow, deliberately leaking the A9 road as the route. Mallory and the MI6 team realize the plan and help Q with the disinformation to lure Silva to the remote location. At the abandoned Skyfall Lodge, Bond is greeted by Kincaid, the old gamekeeper who raised him after his parents died. With only minimal resources, Bond's father's old hunting rifle, a shotgun, and a few sticks of dynamite, Bond, M and Kincaid prepare the old house for a siege. Bond booby traps the house with gas tanks and explosives, resolving to draw Silva into a final bloody confrontation. Silva and a large armed team arrive via helicopter. Bond and Kincaid manage to repel the first wave of attack, with Bond using his knowledge of the terrain and the house's structure. Bond then sets off the gas tanks, resulting in a massive explosion that destroys the manor, forcing Silva and his remaining men to continue the pursuit on foot. Bond leads M and Kincaid through a secret tunnel to an isolated abandoned chapel on the grounds. Silva follows, catching up to M in the chapel and finding her alone. He advances on her, putting his gun to her head and telling her, "Free both of us," with the same bullet. Bond emerges from the shadows and throws a hunting knife into Silva's back. As Silva is distracted, Bond and Silva struggle, and Bond ultimately kills Silva with a knife through the back. Bond rushes to M, who had been shot during the earlier firefight and is now fatally wounded. She dies in his arms, her last words a simple acknowledgement that Bond was right about her one certainty, him. Following M's funeral, Gareth Mallory steps into the role of the new M. Bond, having been given a porcelain bulldog M had kept on her desk, finds Eve, the agent who had shot him in Istanbul, now working as Mallory's secretary. She formally reintroduces herself to him, confirming her full name, Eve Moneypenny, and revealing she has left field work. Bond accepts his new assignment from the new M, ready to continue his service. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.